Hello and welcome everyone. This is Jacob Pankin on This is the Way Jacob Sees It. I am your host. Welcome once again. I'm coming at you from Washington Heights. And today I have a very special guest here.
Hello.
Catherine,
Yeah.
a.k.a. Kate. Kate
Either.
Bird.
Hi, how are you?
I'm
good
good.
to be here.
I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad I'm here too. Thank you for having me.
How do you feel being up in Washington Heights? You ever been
know
here
what?
before?
I've only been once when I got lost on my way to Ithaca, New York. And I wasn't sure where I was. I just needed to get to the George Washington Bridge, and I was in the wrong place.
It's the biggest monument in our area besides Fort
Also
Tryon,
the
maybe.
most infuriating, but
It can be. It's never ending traffic.
Yeah.
Or construction.
yeah.
You know.
Or assholes.
Now at least, or assholes for sure. So hope everyone is well. Hope everyone has been learning a lot this week. Been having a fruitful week. Been spreading a lot of love and laughter as usual. Hope you all have learned something new. This is episode 2 of the first season of The Way Jacob Sees It. Hope everyone that is tuning in is in a comfortable place, or if you are commuting, whatever you're doing, I hope you enjoy what I have to say to you, and hope that you can, whatever we speak about, you can garner your own opinions and formulate your own opinions on these, whatever things we bring up, and you know, it stimulates thought. That's the whole point of this entire escapade. So, with that, I'm going to give you guys a little word of the day. I usually give weather on my radio show with Brian, my co-host, but I don't know when you guys will be listening to this, how it will be disseminated to you guys, whether it's through iTunes, through the Liberated Syndication website that I post this on, whether it's through the link on my Facebook that I'll eventually be posting, through a third party, whatever it may be. But I will give you guys a word of the day, and I try to be a wordsmith. I try to expand my vocabulary through the things that I'm reading. I like to write different things, whether it's poetry, personal narratives, essays, short stories, things of the like. I have aspirations of being a writer and continuing to make these podcasts and continuing to form my voice. And any feedback is welcome for you guys. You know, you can shoot me, jacobpankin@gmail.com. Any feedback is always welcome. I need feedback to be able to grow. So word of the day is amalgamate. Amalgamate. Let's say it. Say it together. 3, 2, 1. Amalgamate. Wonderful.
Beautiful.
And that means combine to form one structure. So anyone that's native to New York City, you may have seen this on the bank headline, amalgamated bank, and this can mean just a combination of funds or something of the like. So amalgamate. Another thing that I want to just go over real quick is Life's Little Instruction Calendar Classics. It's this little calendar on a little plastic leaning stand. You can get them at Barnes & Noble and other bookstores. Strand has become a bit of an iconic bookstore in the Lower East Side. I see tote bags aplenty.
Branded, yeah.
Tote bags aplenty all the time. Yeah, it's very branded for sure. But I like them. It's a good look. And it has a little blurb along with the date and the month and the day of the week. And this one says it's never too late to get involved in a good cause. So very relevant.
That's right.
Last little order of business, housekeeping if you will, is angel cards. I introduced this last week when I started off the pilot of my podcasting. And basically they just have a little word. They can be moral-based word. It can be something that you can lead with through your month, through your week, through any trials, tribulations, endeavors that you are going through. So I'm going to have...
Never seen these before.
Never seen these?
No, these are beautiful.
They
They're
are.
so intricate.
They are intricate.
They're
They have a little cartoon with a little angel in the corner.
It's gorgeous.
And
Acceptance.
oh, this is a double. Yeah, acceptance and acceptance. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So I'll have you pick one at random, and
Sure.
we will lead with that throughout the duration,
the theme
remainder
of
our
the
podcast. Exactly.
Okay, here we go.
A perfect theme.
Okay, and the theme is power.
Power.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So the
A
power.
dynamic word.
Very dynamic word. The power vested in me. I will try to gift you guys with as much perspective and knowledge as more perspective and experience, but as much knowledge as I can award you guys. So I'm sitting here once again with Kate Bird.
That's me. Hello.
And
Hi,
you hail from Australia, correct?
I do. If you couldn't tell, my accent has faded slightly, but it's still there. It's still strong. I'm Australian, Aussie.
Oi, oi, oi.
That's
there
right.
you go. So
That's right.
I always thought for a longest time I used to hear people say that, and I thought it was referring to like Ozzy Osbourne or something. I thought it was.
Oh no,
Yeah.
no, that's my biggest pet peeve that Americans get.
Yeah,
Or the fact that
very
they
mixed
say Aussie really annoys me. Just like any kind of mispronunciation of, or like them trying to put their own Australian like spin on something.
Oh man, like shrimp on the Barbie. I feel like that's
I get that
way
constantly.
too much of a cliche.
I get that every single day. I also get, do you ride kangaroos to school? And I say yes, just to throw them off.
Have you really gotten that? I feel
oh
like
my god, that's the number one question. And you know what?
do you ride kangaroos to school? Like
Do you
what
ride
what
kangaroos to
what
school?
who could possibly think that would work out? That would actually be a valid thing that you guys would do.
People
That's
think
so
all
like
kinds of things.
novel. That's such a novel
I
thing
mean-
to think of you guys. I don't know.
I think it's really optimistic, honestly. It's like, like, do you really think that we spend all our days just hopping around on kangaroos? I feel like that's like that's the epitome of Australia. It's just a real, like, an Aussie bloke on the back of a kangaroo riding through the desert going, Aussie, Aussie, Aussie.
And they're actually quite abrasive. If anyone
They'll
knows,
punch you.
they'll punch you.
Yeah.
If anyone knows,
Don't get too close.
don't get too close. If anyone knows Kangaroo Jack, really bad animation, kind of archaic animation. I remember the way they animated him, and
I've never
specifically
seen it, actually.
his face and his eyes, the way they kind of warped the animation of his face. I don't know what they were. Some weird puppet warp they were using in animation was just bad. It was just like dated. Anyway, so you've been here for 5 years now,
Yes,
and
yes. 5 years in 2 days' time. 5 years exactly.
Where did you first move to? Because you didn't come to New York City
No, I
first,
didn't.
did you?
No.
Okay.
I moved to a town called Rye in Westchester.
Rye.
Rye.
That's
Exactly.
I've passed there many a time
Have
on
you really?
on
Have
the
you gone to
Metro
Playland?
on the Metro North
Right.
Railroad. No, I haven't been to Playland, but just a little aside.
Yeah.
There's been quite a few deaths at the Rye Playland amusement park.
It's a rickety ride. It's full of really, like, I think the oldest ride is like 120 years old.
Wow.
So it's extremely dangerous. I would only recommend the Ferris wheel. I think that's
Okay.
that's a safe thing. But
So
yes,
if anybody's
Rye
considering Rye Playland, Ferris wheel,
only.
catch a view.
Yeah.
So how was that growing up in not growing up, but
Yeah, I mean,
continuing your 16 teenage years on? How was that growing up in Rye?
So I spent 2 solid years there, and I moved to America first when I was 16, which is kind of like a turbulent time. It's you're changing a lot, you're discovering things about yourself, and the first thing I did was join the rugby team. So I played on the men's rugby team for a year, or I mean the duration of the season, and then the next year I started a women's rugby team because I wanted to be able to play and actually tackle properly and really like get in the thick of it and get in a scrum and really like
The scrum is really, really interesting. I don't know much about rugby,
best
but
sport in the world.
it's
I would
when
say.
Scrum is when everybody circles around. It's kind of the big
Yes.
circle around the ball, right? And
Yeah.
they all kind of just
Well, it's like it's like a break in the play, I guess,
Okay.
where you have to huddle around the ball, and then that's when the next play starts. So it gets fed to the scrum half. I was a scrum half. It's a great position. I got to run around a lot and kind
That's
of yell
amazing.
at people. It was really fun.
it's a very high contact sport, and I've seen
Yeah.
Australia, the televised national team. They're really good.
They're excellent.
Australia has a very good
But
team.
New Zealand might trump
Really?
Australia in that respect.
Wow.
The All Blacks
Okay.
are a very, very strong team. That's something that's really, it's contested with Australians and New Zealanders. The
Okay.
Kiwis. As we
Kiwis.
call them. Kiwis.
Okay, interesting. So you mentioned that your dad, you have dual citizenship, right?
I do. luckily enough, honestly, like, thank God. If I didn't have dual citizenship, I wouldn't be able to be in this country. And the reason I have dual citizenship is because my mother is American.
Okay.
Which is just a very, very lucky thing, because a lot of people do not have that luxury.
Has an Australian accent rubbed off on her, or not as much?
She's got a weird, like, hybrid accent, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
We like hybrids.
Yeah, I mean,
like
I think
hybrids.
that's kind of where I'm heading, unfortunately. I'd like to hold on to my Australianisms, but they're kind of escaping me as
I think
New York.
I think your accent's still pretty thick, though.
Thank you,
still
Jacob.
definitely.
I appreciate that.
It's still good though. In the best
when
way.
I go back to Australia, my friends are like, "You sound American." And I'm like, "No, please, I don't want to be an American. Not yet. I'm not ready."
I'm not ready for the transformation.
No.
So, how was that experience? Like, how was it just warming up to America? Like, what did you notice about the people and just the culture that existed within?
It was a shock for sure. It was a massive culture shock that I didn't expect, because I thought I knew what America looked like, sounded like, was basically.
What had you seen before you came here? I'm curious.
I guess, like, Mean Girls, basically.
My God.
Would be like the representation of what I thought America was, and I was like, okay, that's it. This is going to be either,
it's
really
accurate
terrible,
to some degree, yeah.
To some degree, honestly. Like the high school that I went to, the football team was dominant. The parties were huge. People, drank a shit ton. They loved to drink. They loved to get wild. There was the red cups. There was all of that I had never even seen before, and I was like, it was.
And that's really interesting, and I think mostly everywhere in high school in America, there's a pretty strong drinking culture.
Oh yeah, binge drinking.
But in my high school too, everyone drank. Even the people that were a little more prude, a little more reserved, didn't put themselves out there as much. Maybe weren't as sociable.
I
social
think that's
butterflies.
An interesting discrepancy with Australia, because people kind of wait until they're like 17 or 18 to start drinking, and most of my friends, I think, American friends started drinking when they were like 13 and like going hard.
It's really interesting that a lot of people in Australia that you noted that they would wait, because there's no waiting for 21, and
No.
there's such a big age difference between that. There's many differences between Europe and Australia and America. Being one of them is smaller cars, the metric system.
Acknowledging climate change,
to name a few. There's a bunch of things, maybe things like, like I've said, I don't want to get too politicized, but maybe capitalism is a little less accentuated, although it does exist in Europe, absolutely, but maybe it's a little less accentuated and less
for sure,
less shoved down your throats.
It's less prevalent and it's less necessary for life. Like, I think in America, there's a real focus on keeping the upper class wealthy and keeping the poor where they are, and that's perpetuated through capitalism.
I also think there's a lot better social reform in places like
universal
Australia.
healthcare exists in Australia.
Exactly. That's
it's
interesting.
Never changed. That's
very
it's
interesting.
So important to each citizen,
and that's still a struggle that we deal with in America is finding that median of healthcare.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting, because the rich just keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer. With the last tax cut, it did not favor anyone except the 1% margin. But that's nothing to get into, really. But kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit as well is sort of the sex ideal that and romanticism that romantics that exist among millennials and the age group of our generation, just in general too, like around young people in Australia, because we sort of are very, very vague and ambivalent.
There's a huge lack of commitment.
Yeah,
especially in America.
Huge deficit and lack of commitment in America. We're almost repulsed by it, I think. And at least when I was growing up, I grew up around so many